So, it's been a little while, but I figured now's a perfect time to wrap up the second, or I guess third, Kirby Marathon. You know, back when I first started this, I don't know why I thought splitting a marathon into two, but yet calling it the same marathon was a good idea. Last time, we covered a bit of an odd period in Kirby's life. Amazing Mirror and Squeak Squad came out at a time where Kirby felt pretty low priority for Nintendo, considering they weren't even made by the original developers. Epic Yarn was a grand return to console, but still, it's not a traditional Kirby game. But let's rewind back to the year 2005. A traditional Kirby game was being developed for the GameCube. Not a ton of details are known about this outside of this trailer that was from that year's E3, since, well, you can assume it got cancelled. There were also two other Kirby games that were in development as well, one being a 2D platformer with a pop-up book art style, and another being a full-on 3D platformer. I'm still waiting for this one to be a reality, but altogether, that means 3 Kirby games were brought to life, and then subsequently killed. But the end result of all that work, an actual finished game, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So like, this is the only Kirby game with an actual interesting development history. I don't know, I think that's kinda cool. One fine day in Dreamland, King Dedede and Bandana D are chasing after Kirby holding a slice of strawberry shortcake. Huh, maybe a direct sequel to Squeak Squad in the official Kirby timeline, perhaps? Nah, who am I kidding, there is no timeline. After strolling past a surprisingly relaxed Meta Knight, suddenly a bright light flashes in the sky and a giant starship flies through, trailing smoke, and pieces fly off and spread everywhere. It's a terrible scene to watch, but worst of all, Kirby dropped his cake. We'll never forget you, Cake. The four make their way to the crash site to the still intact ship's hull to find a knocked out alien still inside. The alien, named Magalore, has a major issue. 120 energy spheres that were kept on board, as well as 5 major parts of the ship, have been scattered to the 5 corners of Popstar. And being just the helpful ball of pink puff that he is, Kirby offers to help out, and the other 3 tag along for the ride. Now why King Dedede would willingly put himself in harm's way for someone that he just met, I don't know, but hey, now we got some royalty on our side. That's the best I got. It's kinda hard to decipher the inner workings of a king penguin. Oh wait, a king penguin, that's actually a thing. That makes a lot of sense now actually. Now with the title of the game being Return to Dreamland, that works from a gameplay perspective too. This is as traditional of a Kirby game as you could get. Running, jumping, floating, and the main collectible this time around come in the form of those energy spheres, a few in each level. And as expected, the game's structure is traditional as well. Each world has a specific theme and a little 2D hub area to go along with it, with each level being behind a special door, much like some of Kirby's earlier titles. They all have adorable food-based names as well, like Cookie Country and Onion Ocean, which is just cute. But what's kind of surprising, the little world-starting cutscenes, they didn't return. I thought those were really neat in the earlier games, but maybe that's just the Kirby fanboy in me, missing something that, realistically, is very, very small. And since the game is so traditional, it may be easy to just say the game is simply more of the same. A similar curse to the one that New Super Mario Bros. Suffered. But in reality, after over 11 years since Kirby 64, the previous console game in the series, and the previous mainline game developed by HAL, everything that this game has to offer has been polished to near perfection. Firstly, there is the return of the copy abilities, and what's great about them this time around is they all follow the Kirby Superstar model of each ability having multiple moves depending on button inputs and timing. This was sort of done in Squeak Squad with the ability scrolls, but nowhere near this level. And as a result, nearly every ability is useful for multiple different instances, rather than some only being good for a couple of sections. The in-air beam attack covers a good area in front of you. Being able to spin dash with the needle gives the ability some extra mobility. The same basically goes for Parasol, and well, really, the list goes on. Hell, high jump returns too, with the addition of a chargeable jump and a rocket dive, making even this ability more useful. Sleep, on the other hand? Oh, but don't go thinking now that means they added nothing new to sleep. One quick shake of the Wii remote, and the bubble pops faster. As for brand new abilities, there's 4 of them. Harness the power of greenery with Leaf. Practice your jabbing or your tossing with Spear. Ride the waves and, let's be honest, basically become a waterbender with Water. And lastly, don an adorable cowboy hat, which I believe is what gives Kirby the power to use the whip. This is definitely a solid lineup of new abilities, way better than the few introduced in Squeak Squad, evidenced by the fact that none of them returned. Then on top of the new abilities, there's also these special objects that temporarily give you some extra firepower. There's a cannon that shoots fireworks, a candle to light up dark areas, a bomb that expands over time before exploding, a stone that makes you invisible, the Stomper Boot, which really, it's just the Karibo shoe from Mario 3, let's be honest, and a majestic French horn that shoots magical, dangerous water with, quite frankly, a beautiful rainbow pattern. Elegant. Now these obviously don't count as copy abilities, but there is definitely a stronger emphasis in puzzle solving and obstacle passing thanks to these tools showing up every now and then without really needing you to have any specific ability, and that's quite frankly a nice change of pace. However, not only that, but in this adventure, some abilities get some special treatment. A super treatment, actually. Occasionally, a special glowing enemy will appear, and once inhaled, Kirby has access to a spruced up form of an existing ability. But, more importantly, a more spruced up form of an existing hat. Now, while there are 5 of them that act very differently, they all ultimately kinda play the same. In the area that you get the ability, there's a bunch of obstacles with star symbols on them. Activate the ability, get greeted with what is basically a Final Fantasy-esque summoning sequence, and destroy everything in sight. By the end of that section, you get access to an interdimensional portal that brings you to a special grayscale area where you're being chased by, I'm not entirely sure. I'm thinking it's just some sort of dark energy or dark mass. Oh, for crying out loud, we're talking about Kirby going to other dimensions via interdimensional portals that appear out of nowhere. Granted, this isn't the first time Kirby's been in situations like this, but still, it's quite bizarre. It's pretty bizarre. These lead up to bosses against these bird-like creatures called Sphere Doomers. They're all, honestly, pretty easy encounters, and as a reward for beating them, you get some energy spheres, and then resume your journey, not really thinking twice about how you just traveled to another dimension! Ultimately, each level tosses out some new ideas, whether it be using the super abilities or using one of those special tools. And in combination with the multifunctional abilities, this results in one of the most fun Kirby games in the series. The bosses have even been upgraded too. While you still can kinda just barrage them with whatever ability you have on you, they all have much larger health bars and multiple phases, so no more mindlessly attacking until the boss goes down. Well, for the most part. There's even co-op as well if you are so inclined. Not really my cup of tea to be honest, but it allows other players to control the other heroes on your adventure, which is just a neat addition.
Bandana D, away!
The soundtrack is fantastic as well, boasting the largest selection of songs the series has seen yet. And even graphically, the game does a phenomenal job. Bright and vibrant colors at all times, and if you ever actually stop and look at the backgrounds, they are typically shockingly well done, and you barely ever have the time to sit back and appreciate it. That's just, come on, that's just pretty. So back when this game first came out, I had figured at this point they had nearly perfected the Kirby formula. Basically everything a fan could ask for was here in spades. Well, except for those cutscenes. Man, I actually do really miss those. Naturally, there are a few sub-games as well, only 2 this time around. They can both be played with friends, and actually, they require motion controls. In Scope Shot, you shoot giant robots to destroy them piece by piece, and in Ninja Dojo, you flick the Wiimote to toss a star at a moving target. They're both alright, but really only enjoyable with other people, since they are primarily score-based games. But there are also a bevy of ability-based challenge rooms that test your skills with a handful of different abilities, and score your performance based on enemies defeated, hits taken, and overall speed. And I absolutely love these challenges. They practically require pinpoint precision, and it is really fun trying to master a Kirby game in that way. In fact, Kirby's Dream Collection features some challenge rooms as well. Yeah, this is primarily a collection of 6 classic games, but there's also a handful of brand new rooms with new challenges and even some races against Magolor. That's a pretty sweet addition if you ask me. Last up is the return of the Arena, a boss endurance mode that throws you at a lineup of bosses and mini-bosses. On top of that though, is the return of the true Arena. See, once you beat the main adventure, you unlock Extra Mode, a modified and harder version of that same adventure, featuring revamped and more difficult bosses, and even an entirely new boss, HRD3, which actually comes from that cancelled GameCube game. Pretty cool. And the True Arena is a lineup of those harder bosses, even throwing in a fight with Galacta Knight, because really, why not? And with him returning, you know what that means. Oh god, my head. Time to wrap this adventure up. After getting back all of the pieces of Magolor's ship, he takes the band of merry heroes, we'll call them, to his home world of Halcandra. However, once they reach orbit, the ship gets blasted out of the sky by a crowned 4-headed dragon, Landia. Now, Magolor informs the gang that he needs the Master Crown retrieved, and the adventure continues. Once the dragon is taken care of, Magolor himself dons the crown and now plans to conquer the universe, starting with Kirby's home of Popstar. What a twist! That's not like Mark's at all. Keep that in mind for later. Actually, something that's kinda neat, the first letter of each world spells out the word crowned. You clever girl, you. Thankfully, Landia, now split into 4, offers their help to get back at Magolor. After a shooting section, which is honestly a great throwback to Superstar, it is time to destroy that evil alien for good. And the fight with him is very, very similar to the fight with Marx. You see, the comparisons don't stop. If it took you this long to realize it, yeah, Superstar played a heavy influence into this game. That's not all though. Magolor has a second form that, naturally, looks like some sort of hellspawn. And once again, the accompanying music is fantastic. Totally okay with epic final boss music being a returning thing as well. Once defeated, the dimension that they were fighting in starts to shatter, but with the help of the Landias, the crew make it back to Popstar successfully. Landia, as well as Magolor's ship, the Lore Starcutter, which, I guess, is somehow sentient, fly back to their homeworld, ending Kirby's return to Dreamland. And no, Kirby does not get that piece of cake back. Having played this game again, and after playing the next 2 games in the series, Return to Dreamland still holds up, and it remains one of the best games in the series. Squeak Squad is a perfect example of a Kirby game simply going through the motions. This is a perfect example of an evolution of the old school Kirby formula. Bottom line, the game is a ton of fun, which is really all I ask for in a Kirby game. Well, and also those cutscenes, but I mean, hey, beggars can't be choosers. So, this began a bit of a renaissance period for Kirby. The next 2 games would definitely follow in this game's footsteps. Currently, Return to Dreamland is the last mainline Kirby game on consoles, but next time on the Kirby Marathon, we're taking a trip to the 3DS with Kirby Triple Deluxe. And do you get it? It's Triple Deluxe, 3D Triple Deluxe. I'll see myself out. The party ain't over just yet. To go along with the Kirby Marathon, I'm currently playing through Kirby's Dream Land 2 over on my Let's Play channel. That'll last through the entire month, just like the videos on this channel will. So go and check that out. I've already played 2 other Kirby games that you can go and watch as well, and I will see you all next week for Triple Deluxe. Bye-bye!